This is Pillar 43, also known as the Vulture Stone, from the ancient site of Göbekli Tepe, in southeastern Turkey. Some believe it tells a story, not just symbolic, but deeply meaningful. What if this is a memory, carved in stone? A memory of a long-forgotten catastrophe. Let's take a closer look at the top of the pillar. Here we see three mysterious objects. They resemble handbags, but not the kind we know. No stitching, no seams, no straps or woven fibers. Nothing to suggest they were made from leather, fabric, or any earthly material. When we compare them to real handbags or baskets, I mean the kind crafted by human hands, the difference is striking. These are too smooth, too abstract, and yet oddly imperfect. Their handles are uneven, off-center. If they were meant to represent divine objects, why would the artist make them asymmetrical? Whatever they are, they were placed high on the stone. Clearly important. Perhaps they were never meant to be practical, but symbolic. Containers of something sacred. But sacred what? Above the handbags, we see three animals: a bird, a mammal, and what appears to be an amphibian, or perhaps a burrowing creature. These were likely not chosen at random. Each one seems to represent a different domain of life. The sky, the land, and the zone beneath or between. Look closer, and you'll notice they are all in motion. The bird lowers its legs, as if coming into land. The mammal tilts forward, head first, almost like a dive. And the third descends just the same. They are not simply floating above the bags. They are entering them. Not literally, but symbolically. This may suggest a rescue, a divine preservation of life from air, land, and in between. And yet, notice how none of the animals enters through the handles. Perhaps it wasn't meant to be realistic. These carvings were likely conceptual, less about what the eye sees, and more about what the mind must understand. Or maybe, contact between sacred objects and earthly creatures was seen as taboo. Either way, the message remains clear. These animals are being taken in, protected, saved. But now we pause. Something is missing. Where is the handbag for the fish? For the creatures who live entirely in water? Where is the handbag for the humans? The very ones who carved this stone. And what about the plants? The trees? The flowers? The silent foundation of every ecosystem? Why are the animals being gathered at all? Is this divine hunting? Or are the gods preparing? Relocating species before disaster strikes? Let's consider each absence in turn. Fish. They need no rescue from rising water. Their world grows larger when the sea expands. They were never in danger. Plants and trees. Perhaps they were seen as irrelevant. Or maybe they would regrow wherever the animals were taken. But humans? Their absence is the most haunting. No bag, no symbol, no rescue. Maybe they weren't forgotten. Maybe they were the reason for the flood. What do we see carved around the divine bags? V-shaped lines. Above them and below. They weren't placed there by accident. The maker took time and great care to add them. They seem to mean something. Could they represent water? The peaks and valleys of waves. It's possible. Each wave is double-layered. A small V nested inside a larger one. Precise. Deliberate. Almost elegant. These are not careless marks. They seem refined. Costly in effort. Perfectly repeated. This could be the carver's way of saying, This water is divine. But there is one more detail. A broken line. It appears just below the waves. Quiet. Subtle. A transition. From many small waveforms to fewer but larger ones. As if the turbulence begins to settle. Could this mark the moment when the flood slowed? When the chaos gave way to stillness? Not safety but silence. The solid line that follows. It might show what remained. A calm, lifeless sea. No struggle left beneath its surface. Even the water obeyed the will of the gods. At the far end of the waterband, two animals. An ibis standing still. Neck raised. But lifeless. No ground left to stand on. Its world has disappeared. Next to it a catfish. Alive. Thriving. For the ibis, the flood meant death. For the catfish, it brought life. Not all creatures suffered. Some adapted. Some were saved. But the humans? They were gone. The bags and the water. Symbols. Placed side by side. The message lies in their association. So why did the gods rescue only these three groups of animals? The gods caused the waters to rise. And their silence speaks volumes. A divine decision. A judgment. A choice to let mankind drown. But why? We don't know. The answer is not carved into this pillar. And the flood was controlled. Was intentional. What happened to humanity was no accident. They weren't forgotten. They were condemned. This pillar is often called the Vulture Stone. At first glance, that name makes sense. A large bird stands proudly near the center. Its wings stretched wide. Its posture commanding. But let's take a closer look. This bird isn't soaring. It's not circling above dry land. Its wings aren't raised for flight, but extended, flat and open, as if drying in the wind. A strange detail for a vulture. And then we ask, what kind of bird behaves like this? Which bird spreads its wings? Not to fly, but to dry. After diving into water, the answer might surprise us. Not a vulture, but a cormorant. A bird built for water. Adapted to survive in a world where dry land is gone. Perhaps the sculptors chose it for exactly that reason. To show us the creature that did not drown. The one that stayed. And claimed this new world of waves. Just above the bird's wing. A plain disc. No markings. No detail. Could it be the sun? It makes sense. A featureless disc. Like the sun in the sky. And placed near the center of the carving. Even 10,000 years ago. The sun must have held deep meaning. But here, it may mean something more. Not just warmth. Not just light. But time. One sun. One cycle. One day. A message carved in stone. The flood didn't take weeks. It didn't take months. It happened in a single day. Sudden. Final. Unstoppable. Near the disc. A chick. Could it be that young birds somehow survived? And if this chick reflects a real event, then it may hold another clue. Chicks hatch in spring. So perhaps that's when the flood began. Although the pillar is carved from a single block of stone, the imagery divides naturally into two distinct zones. An upper and a lower section. The upper portion tells the story of the rising water, the divine bags, and the rescued animals. The lower section is different. It features a scorpion, a vulture, and a naked man without a head. The style of storytelling feels changed. Harder to place in a clear sequence. Perhaps these are two chapters in one story. The flood and its aftermath. One speculative idea is that the survivors drifted at sea for days or weeks before reaching new land. By then, the best hunting grounds and fertile soil may have already been claimed. They may have been forced to settle in a far harsher landscape. Dry, barren, unforgiving. The scorpion and the vulture might represent the hardships of this new world. And the headless man. Perhaps not a sacrifice but a burial custom. A ritual of separation. The head treated with reverence. The body left behind. These carvings weren't done on a whim. They were carefully planned. Thoughtfully executed. They likely agreed on the design before the first cut. They chose each element deliberately. Not just what to include but how to show it. Take the water. It wasn't carved randomly. It was given a divine appearance. Not just a symbol of water but a way to show how it rose over time. And what the surface may have looked like. This wasn't just storytelling. It was a message meant to last. A record for future generations. So they would know and remember what had happened. Thank you for watching. This video presents a speculative interpretation of Pillar 43 at Göbekli Tepe. It is not definitive. Just one possible reading of a story carved in stone. Video. Text and concept. Andre van Eck. Images. Wikimedia Commons, public domain. For more, see the accompanying information linked in the description.